Hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Off the Mark. I am your host, Tootie O, and with me, as always, is my beautiful co-host and queen, Miss Meeks Kali. How are you, my love?
I'm doing fantastic, Tootie. How are you? You look amazing as always.
As do you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
God.
I gotta show you guys the shirt. Okay, so hold on. Okay, so this is Halix, which is a band who used to perform with at Disneyland, and I want to thank my best friend Mike G from Masters of the Nerdiverse. So if you don't follow them yet, and you don't subscribe, and you like nerd stuff, please go to them. The shirt is amazing. Thank you so much, my dear. How to do it?
Oh my goodness, that shirt's so incredible.
Thank you so much.
I didn't recognize it at first. Oh my goodness. Love. I have to see it up
Okay,
and close
so
for in person.
right. So yes, thank you so much. Now that we got that out of the way, as again, shirt's amazing. Um, Today's episode is going to be about Biden's 1,000-mile start to his presidency, and that he signed historically more executive orders than any other president in the history of the United States, to be honest. So we're going to get into every single, maybe not every single executive order, but we're going to get into a lot of the executive orders that he immediately found it necessary to sign, and hopefully, probably we're going to get into his motives as to why he signed them. So, without further ado, let's get to it. I mean, Miss Meeks Kali, what do you think? How do you? What's his motive? What's going on here? That's a lot of hastiness for 1 week of presidency.
Right. It's historic. I believe he's signed 30 executive orders in the first 3 days of being in office. Or how many did you say the exact numbers were? And then in comparison
You know
to
what's
previous
funny?
presidents?
The exact number that I have, and I'm sure it's been updated since then, but this was this morning, is 33.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, so I have 33 executive orders and or actions and or mandates signed. As of this morning, again, 28 of them are actual executive orders. So they're actually signed and legit into law. So it's kind of interesting that that's quite a
Wow.
few. Given that the our past presidents, especially our recent past presidents, didn't go anywhere near that number of 33. So it's insane. Barack Obama signed 5 in his first term. I think
Oh,
he
the
signed,
entire first term, not just the first month.
no, just the entire first term. Oh,
Oh, wow.
I could be wrong, but I could be wrong because he did sign the ACA Act. He did sign some very significant acts, Barack Obama.
Those could have been in his second term, though, too.
Yeah, that's also true. I didn't get information on the second one. In passing, as I read, I think it could have been 4, but either way, Clinton only signed 1 in his first week. Bush signed none in his first week. Bush Jr. signed none in his first week. So,
Wow.
it's just 33 is just like, it's an insane number. Obviously, or apparently, it's an insane number to sign in week 1. It's like, let me undo all this and undo this and undo this and undo
Right.
that. And it's like I suggested in previous episodes, it's just canceling and pressing the C button on the calculator.
Right.
That's basically happened in the last 4 years.
Right.
Take it for what you will, be it good or bad. But if you ask me, not the best decisions. But we'll go from there. Yeah. Aside from that, as of today, which is, and I hate that I have to bring up the date, but I guess it's kind of important. January 26th. Trump's second impeachment trial did start today. So again, it will be thrown out in the Senate in a few months, and nothing will come of it, and that'll be fine. But they insist on having him in the news still, which is kind of funny.
Wow. After Biden's already, taken office and all that, to
Yeah, no
still
kidding.
insist on defaming Trump in this way. And it's interesting that even like a lot of the news coverage and late night talk show hosts and everything have even coined it like the undoing of Trump, or canceling Trump or erasing Trump or those kinds of things. Like they're even presenting it as such that they're not trying to hide it, that that's their plan or anything. Like it's being marketed as such that everything that happened these last 4 years, we're going to revert and get back on track from it. So it's really pointing to a detour that occurred with Trump and kind of isolating him from the rest of the presidents.
A detour that lets a lot of people delusional and in a haze and in a fuzz and very confused. And
Yeah.
obviously, the country is completely divided because of this detour that they want
Yeah.
to, you know, as if he sat there throwing a wrench, in the machine, But
Right.
it would make you wonder why they would want to completely shut up that wrench in the machine
Right.
and continuously accuse this leader of being some type of tyrant without any evidence of tyranny, to be honest. So it's interesting whatever motive, and the thing is, it's all about motive. So whatever motive President Trump had in the last 4 years, he wasn't successful. Let's put it that way. Whatever he tried to attempt to accomplish in the last 4 years, in most of the country's eyes, he didn't succeed. But also, and about 75 to 80 million of the of Americans here in America would agree that we were ready to give him another chance to see what he was going to do, because there was positive things happening in the economy, in our own incomes, in our own pocketbooks. There were things happening that we wanted to continue to happen in the country. So,
Right.
That being said, I understand that there's a certain hope for this next president and a certain hope and progress for what's happening with these executive orders that we think and deem to be, oh, this is great, this is progress. Finally, we get to move forward. But do we really understand what we're moving forward from? And is it
Right.
really?
And they're coining it as like progress and presenting it as that, but really we're just essentially spinning our wheels if we're not. It would make sense if Trump had his presidency, we tried it out, right? And then we let the people speak from that of what we want to do instead and how to adjust and amend it. And then we moved forward from there. But they're intentionally backtracking instead of trying to integrate what has happened and the results of where we're at. They're like intentionally undoing, erasing 4 years of America's progress and experience through this.
Right.
They're outright reversals.
Right.
That's it. And during the election, even there was a lot of people equating to, if there was critics of, not finding either candidate desirable, there was the analogy of, that's kind of like if you're on a bus and there's two options for the next stop and neither one is your final destination, but you just pick whichever stop is closer to the one that you're going towards, which is silly because if both stops are completely in the other direction, like maybe you'd be better off getting off the bus and like finding hailing a taxi or scootering over there or whatever. But even in the eyes of that analogy, that it's essentially like you picked one stop and now instead of going from that stop to the next one, you're going back around the block to where you began and just entirely backtracking. Like now we're just like doing loops around the city,
Right.
it's not true progress.
Even scarier without even realizing it. That's what's going on, and which is straight insanity.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't, and which is what we call hypocrisy today, because we keep going around in these same circles and these same. There's actually a story of Biden's new press secretary, Plasansky. I apologize that I don't actually, Jen Plasansky. I apologize, I don't actually know her name yet, but there's video of her having a tough time being able to justify Biden's recent travel bans, which are one of the executive orders. He has travel bans against Saudi Arabia, I believe against China, against Palestine, against several other countries that he imposed, that they're trying to justify as non-xenophobist the way, or non-racist the way they deemed Donald Trump's travel bans when the coronavirus first started. So it just doesn't make any sense. Like you were saying, everything is a snake eating its own tail. It's all full circle. Like, where do we draw a line to the hypocrisy? And if there's not hypocrisy, if you actually have facts for the decisions that are being made in this very beautiful newborn presidency, let me know and let's see them. But the fact is, even his own press secretary had to get back. I'll get back to you on that, on a lot of issues regarding a lot of the executive orders that he actually put out. And again, he put out 28 in 1 week. That's historical for one, and irrational, if you ask me. Irrational. It's an irrational response. Very emotional. And
how do you expect to integrate and adjust and for all of that when you're throwing it all out at once,
Right. None of it
It's kind
makes
of like
any
when you're
sense.
taking on a new medication, like you don't like put a bunch of different substances into your system and try to see if it's promoting health. You try one at a time, let your body adjust, see how it reacts, and then add another and go from there. And I mean, maybe you can't isolate it so much and speaking for a country or a nation, but still to just throw us all into this completely new paradigm of law in the first week of a presidency and in not progressing, but in a backtracking kind of fashion and then tearing us in a new direction. Yeah, it is just insane. And then
Right.
even for
And
some of
it's
his choices for his cabinet are very questionable. Like he had, let me see, for his treasury, it was someone from the Federal Reserve and like a Monsanto representative and things like that are have been the kind of people that he's been choosing for his cabinet, where it seems very like let's see, Secretary of Treasury was former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen of California. Yeah, and it just seems contrast of interest or
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, the conflict of interest is there. Absolutely, 100%. This is what the media doesn't cover is how much conflict of interest Joe Biden actually has himself involved in, including his son Hunter Biden.
right.
CNN, the last thing they reported on Hunter Biden, and given he does have an actual FBI investigation going on against him. Joe Biden's son has an FBI investigation going on right now. And a lot of people don't know that because it's not being put out in the news. So I'm
Right.
going to
The
put it out
sitting
there for you
president
guys.
has an international like investigation on
Exactly.
his son.
Exactly. Hunter Biden. So the last news story on him on CNN was that Hunter Biden buys bagels before mass at Call Your Mother, a Jewish pastry shop. That was the last story they had on Hunter Biden. Is that he
If
got
you're
his ass
curious
out of the
where
car
that story led,
and
wow.
picked up some bagels at a bagel shop. I even know the name of the bagel shop. That's how detailed they were in this
Wow.
ridiculous story of Hunter Biden. So come on, that should tell everybody something. That should tell us, oh my God, if it tells you, oh, what a great son, that's wonderful because that's the story that they were trying to put out. Good for them. They got a
Right.
bridge. They got a bridge to sell you. you know. But that being said, it's these stories that try to sit there and normalize the Biden family out of nowhere. Let me tell you this: Joe Biden has been in office for the last 45 years, almost pushing 48 years, 50 years, a half a century. This man's been in office, and in 1 week, he pulls off so much more than he's ever pulled off in his 45 years in a career in politics. That's motive. That isn't presidency. That isn't leadership. That's motive.
Right.
Any logical human being will understand that there's nothing behind that but actual agenda, whether it be agenda to push out the previous president, whether it be agenda to push out a previous idea of how America actually should be, that idea of being a constitutionally sound nation with sovereignty. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that he does have the media on his side when
Right.
it comes to this idea of freedom and democracy. He doesn't mention the republic at all. And I don't want to go Star Wars on you guys, but we are a republic. We're not a democracy, and that it goes way deeper than that because there's maritime law and all kinds of stuff that I know for a fact we're going to continuously get into and remind you guys of, because these are things that I need to be reminded of, because I hold such value in the Constitution myself, and I have to understand that doesn't exactly hold. It doesn't even hold its own weight. Even though the last 200 years that it's been around, it doesn't even hold its own weight. So I have to have faith in me, and again, in natural law, and understand that our country isn't exactly naturally based or naturally given. It's corporate based. So
Right.
these are things that I have to continuously remember, because again, hands down, I do consider myself 100% a patriot, and 100% full on a fighter for this country as best as possible. And be it that I fight with information, I'm going to use that information to do what I have to do. Anyway, that being said, and I apologize for the rant. Hunter Biden has been investigated for his foreign affairs. This guy has ties to China. This guy has ties to Russia, And there's evidence of both. And we sit there and we're like, oh, no, it's because they had a good time that night. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, you guys can't rationalize these things if we can't rationalize them for Donald Trump, who made a phone call and said, oh, but I need you to do me a favor though. Like, I understand there's words, there's context, there's things that we have to filter and we have to go through, but there's actual evidence in what's going on with the current president's son. There's been leaked photos of him on drugs and leaked video of him on drugs. Do what you will, good sir. I'm not I don't judge anybody, but at the same time, you are the son of somebody who is in charge, partly or not, of the country in a whole. You know what I mean? So there are examples that need to be held. I myself have to compromise myself and think, maybe that picture is not the best thing to post, whether it's like, having a cocktail or whatever the deal is. My father himself didn't drink or didn't drive after one drink, simply because, like, well, his job was driving, and God forbid he take the risk. So people understand that your career is important and should always overcome your recreational habits, right?
Right. Right.
So him being on video doing crack and twisting a pipe and all this, those exist, and that's real. On top of him having an affair with his dead brother's wife, I mean, there's things that you can sit there and recognize as falsehoods in character, and on top of that, again, I don't want to sit there and judge anybody, but this family is a family that's made of, or that has this ongoing idea that chaos is actually okay because we're getting away with it. If you ask me, that's how I see it. Because these stories aren't about this family that actually exists, that are 100% true. I don't even have to say allegedly. These things actually happened.
Twitter and Facebook actively suppressed the story, like blocked the link that you could not share it. And everybody was like, whoa, I guess we're not supposed to talk about this then, rather than it putting all eyes on, wow, how corrupt is this family that they have this much power to silence the sharing of this content. And thank goodness, it still got out and spread. But yeah, like there's a laptop, there's emails, there's photos, there's video, there's confessions from people. There's Hunter himself on tape and audio, speaking about these deals and making a cut for the big guy and all those kinds of things. And I mean, there's so much stuff that can be doctored now, so everything has to be taken with a grain of salt still. But for there to be that much evidence, and in comparison with some of, I mean, like, look at his teeth, regardless of the photos, or something. And also, like you said, not to judge anybody, because everybody has, rock bottom can happen to anybody, at any time of your life, or to go through those ups and downs. And they say that, you can never take all the credit or all the blame for your children, like, you do your best and it comes what may. But at the same time, how a man runs his family is a reflection of how he's going to run a nation. So if he's if he's not holding Hunter accountable, like, that would be the right thing to do. That's how you demonstrate, I'm having a problem child, and this is how I'm supporting him through this phase of his life, not telling Twitter and Facebook to make sure that nobody knows about this, hide the skeletons back in the closet,
Right. He refuses to answer questions about it.
Right.
He completely avoids the situation. He has, on top of that, knowingly refused to answer questions about even his plan for the vaccine and his plan for the coronavirus.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's. Did you have video of that? Because I feel like.
Oh, not handy, no.
Because he does have a significant amount of executive orders that he put out that basically tie into the exact opposite of what has been happening in the last 4 years of the country.
Right.
So those are kind of the ones that I kind of want to pull up.
Okay, let me go through the it's okay if I bring up the screen?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. And that's this one. All right, and so this is on CNN. It's like, here are the, never mind the advertisements, but here are the 30 executive orders. in Biden's first 3 days. So like just initially from the
Wow.
week, and then there's been
Yeah.
more since then, since this article was
Right.
published. But okay, so like beginning with oh, so they're not in chronological order. So some of these were on the 20th, farther down on the list, but it's mentioning them in, well, we won't go through all 30, but in particular, we want to point out the ones that are specifically a reversal. So it talks about the date, the topic, such as the economy, and then the reversal that was made. So in summary, this one restores the collective bargaining power and worker protections for federal workers and lays the foundation of $15 minimum wage, which, you know, affects different people differently for business owners that, you
Small
know,
businesses are already drowning, and all that's going to do is seal their grave.
yeah. So,
And I don't mean small businesses like your local mom and pop. I mean small businesses like businesses that you think make millions of dollars. Etsy and then businesses like that. These businesses are going to drown.
right. And, you know, it's like, it looks good on paper, like absolutely
Right.
minimum wage, but
That's
you
the
know, like it's
problem.
like, where is this money coming from? It's coming from the business owners and not from, you know, meanwhile, the governors and everybody's getting their kickbacks, but whatever.
That's the issue with Democratic policies. It always looks great on paper because it's always fighting for the underdog and fighting for the man on the low, but it doesn't do anything for the people that are actually fighting for themselves.
Right. Like California is just having an insane explosion of homelessness in our state, and there's programs and stuff to help and support and fund with that, but there's documentaries on how a lot of that funding gets tied up in like projects and developers that then like don't meet their deadlines, and so then it falls through. So these companies that are basically like umbrella companies are getting all the money from that funding, but there's not actually anything that's going into the community to serve these homeless populations and make sure, or you know, not anything, but it's definitely significantly less than the amount of money the taxpayers are allotting for that. So, okay, so on the 20th, one of his very first actions, and you know, there was a lot of criticism of Trump and obviously in his handling of the coronavirus, and they were really parading that he didn't even have a plan this whole time. He's just winging it. So Biden, this reversal stops the United States withdrawal from the World Health Organization, and with Dr. Anthony Fauci becoming the head of the delegation to the WHO. Surprise. So he's obviously been, Dr. Anthony Fauci has been on quite the press circuit, making sure he speaks to everyone, but in those meetings or announcements, he's also saying stuff that like under the Biden administration, that now if you don't know the answer, you can just say you don't know. So whenever somebody asks you a question you don't like, you can just brush it off and say, we're figuring it out, don't worry.
Yeah.
But we're on it. So it's still better than the other guy that said whatever, or maybe said the wrong answer because that's the best that we knew at the time, but now we're just going to leave you in the dark, and it's much better.
Well, he did tell us to drink some bleach, so.
Well,
Yeah, well,
to
I
each
mean,
their own.
here's the thing about science that nobody seems to remember is that science isn't guaranteed. It's science because it's trial and error.
Right.
I mean, that's basically the definition. I mean, you know, it's something that's been repeated on the show many times because it's the truth. You know, science isn't factual by any means. It's experimental by all means. And you know, just because something is scientific fact now doesn't make it scientific fact in 5 years, because evolutionary wise, it's just evident. The evidence doesn't exist. And again, I'm a Christian. I believe in God and I believe in creation, but I do believe that creation and evolution do exist. You know, they coexist, and it's you have to. It's very illogical to think otherwise, to be honest. You know, so but you know, but that, you know, that being said, and again, that's a horse of a different color. But you know, science isn't guaranteed. So Dr. Fauci being wrong isn't a big deal to me. It doesn't offend me. What offends me is him being wrong and still being taken at Bible word. That offends me. You know
right.
what I mean?
And they've even proven it that like scientifically, when there's a variable of the people present observing that experiment. So if you had a different set of doctors or whatever doing that experiment, you'd have a different outcome because there was different people interacting with it. So the observer, even just if you're like watching a timeline or like it's mathematical, it can still fluctuate a bit because there's a different variable in there. And then also like for world health, like the world is going to have different health. Everybody is different, especially when it pertains to different environments and different regions of the world and what the food is relative to there. So to try and like, I mean, I understand the interconnectedness that we should consult with each other, but to like mandate a ruling that's going to be universal for everybody is absurd in that. So that was a huge deal and accomplishment to withdraw from the World Health Organization. And it was a big step in America reclaiming our sovereignty and stuff and asserting what we're willing to abide by or not. But now we're going to have Dr. Anthony Fauci, who we've come to know and trust and love for his science, to delegate from them for us. And next, another reversal, both on the 20th, in regards to the environment. We rejoined the Paris Climate Accord process that will take 30 days. And then Biden also canceled the Keystone XL pipeline and direct agencies to review and reverse more than 100 of Trump actions on the environment.
Those are huge deals. Huge.
Huge.
Huge. Joining the Paris Climate Accord is a big deal, in more ways than one. It's a global movement, which is what the United States fought for to be against.
Right.
So or originally back in history. So it's just
And, if you check out our previous episode on the Great Reset, we talk about the 17 global goals for sustainability, and it all sounds well and good, but it results in complete control over all the resources to be given out equally and equitably to the people. So,
And the Keystone Pipeline, they just immediately lost the second he signed that, 10,000 plus jobs immediately. And they actually were pro Biden, that was a blue state, so it's sad.
So people are already going through hard times, businesses are closing, and now there's industries like this. And obviously we should be moving towards more environmental ways that are sustainable, but when they're done abruptly and in this manner and without an actionable plan, like these people aren't getting retrained to then do this other thing that we're going to do instead. They're just being left out, and you figure out what your next step is to, I mean, I don't know their story.
No, right. No, these people are being told, and quote, learn to code. These people are being told to learn to code. That's what they're being told. Thank you, owner of Twitter. What's his name? I forgot his name, but the guy with the beard and the nose ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his name.
I know it's escaping me.
His name's not important. I'm just saying.
Okay. And so another one was another reversal in the topic of equity. Biden rescinds the Trump administration's 1776 commission, which directs agencies to review their actions to ensure racial equity, which again, sounds all well and good, but with this, he keeps even now bringing up George Floyd, like George Floyd has become a mascot for like he's our new MLK Jr. or something. It's because of what he stood for. I don't know. But
the guy fell asleep in the drive-through. That's all I know.
But
rest in peace. But all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as we've brought up on previous episodes as well, if you check the Black's Laws Dictionary, Black is a status, not a race or ethnicity. There's no land of Black that you hail from, and if you're separated from your land, then you're basically a refugee, not a refugee. Yeah. But yeah, so that's what they're kind of sweeping people into, and we've had some discussions on this, how it's such a reverse racism that's occurring now, where instead of uplifting Black or melanated or African American people and communities, like notoriously so much of that BLM money just got funneled into Democratic candidates through then that money hasn't been actually investing into things that are going to have long-term I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought.
I mean, true. Like most like most aids, these aids don't go to the intention, the well-intended charities. You know, so BLM's aids didn't go to BLM; it went to the blue state aids, like Joe Biden and Bernie
Right.
Sanders, and you know, it went to a lot of Democratic. You know, I understand it. There's complete corruption, absolute complete corruption. What I think a lot of that corruption has a lot to do with, well, basically them being politicians and us being gullible to the things that they have to say.
Right.
You know,
And
I gave you, you know, and I always like to reference the Simpsons because they're so accurate and they're so on point as to their point to the status quo and what we try to reach for and what we actually are. So the his whole uh Kratos or whatever, his whole speech of and always twirling, twirling. Like I always go back to that because that's exactly what politicians' speeches sound like. We will do good, not bad. Good, not evil. And it's like it's so generic. It's the same speech over and over, and yet we fall for it each and every time. This message of unity that Joe Biden is
all that
boasting.
political jargon that like they know are the key words to say to us, and we know those are the key words that we want to hear: freedom, justice, peace,
Equality,
equality.
financial freedom. All of it sounds amazing. All of it doesn't exist. It only exists with us. You know what I mean? And that was the idea behind being a free republic, is that a free republic involves very minimal government and absolute 100%, maybe, okay, let's do the percentages. 90%, 90, even 2% responsibility of the American citizen as opposed to the government, you know, holding yourself accountable. No, you hold
Right.
you accountable. Get your own job, build your own house, find your own water, find your own food, this and that. That was the pioneer idea, the homestead idea behind America. And yes, there are certain people that took it and decided, no, I don't want to do it that way. Somebody else is going to do the work for me, but I am here. So let me just see who I can get to do it for me. Hence slavery, hence
Right.
this and that. Yes. So we did go through some things. We've seen some stuff. We've seen some things, America. I get it. We've been there. Why are we still trying to go back there? This
I mean,
idea. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Well, there is also a eugenics plan that has been in place because, you know, white as an ethnicity or Caucasian is a minority gene, and so a recessive gene, and so it will get breeded out if not intentionally preserved and sustained. So there are like there's a reason why Planned Parenthood is in certain neighborhoods and not, and advertised to certain communities in a certain way with certain imagery and all of those things. And there's documentaries from people who've worked with Planned Parenthood who explain that they were trained that when you specifically had like a single mother or a melanated woman test positive, that when you like gave her the news to like grab her arm and like pinch a little so that she felt like severe right then, or like a slight tinge of pain or seriousness or fear, like to grip her as you say, so you're pregnant, what do you want to do? And then they had a different lead, just like those phone, you know, cold callers, that they had a different like sequence of questions and answers that they would do for certain people than others. So there has been this push, but the solution isn't into register for all these bonuses and stipends and whatever to all these programs that first of all have you register your ethnicity as Black, you know, so you're already classifying yourself into a particular status just to qualify for those benefits. And then if it requires you to have certain like requirements to qualify for it, like having your vaccination up to date or whatever, in order for you to receive your benefit, that's how they entrap you into enslavement, basically, rather than taking responsibility for, and not to say like absolutely every, like we do need to take care of each other. Any person can be like down and out at any time. Your house could catch on fire. A world, you know, like we are a community inherently. That doesn't disappear regardless of what the Constitution says or who's the like we are responsible for love thy neighbor, you know, like and I think that's what they eradicated when we switched to the Constitution instead of like the Iroquois Confederation of, I mean, yes, what I don't know enough about to know whatever the challenge is and how much we prefer this to that in whatever ways, but there was an essence of more connection with the land and the people around it. So all of you are going to work together to make sure your stream is clean if you all collectively from that area are drinking from it, versus if there's a corporation that owns that stream that has no accountability to any of you aside from that you're still purchasing the water from that stream, which of course you're going to do if that's your stream near you or whatever, you know, or like your grocery store or however that has like expanded and evolved in the years since. So instead of us having accountability to our community and whatever affects us, likewise, like if there's a tsunami that's going to come through, it's going to hit you and your neighbors. Likewise, you and your neighbors all have to be ready and fortified. And if your neighbor doesn't have enough or you don't have enough, then you're going to need to depend on your neighbor more. So making sure that everybody's prepared so that should catastrophe strike, we won't like have to lean quite to the point of being a burden on each other. You know, we don't want to be like when somebody's trying to save you from drowning and you're like thrashing around and you're going to pull them down with you. So let's not be like a liability to others. But yes, if somebody's unconscious, don't just let them drown. Obviously, like as much as your strength can muster, or if you need help or to pull together, like let's get as many people to shore as we can. But yeah, so just to be mindful of like some of the wording of all these things that might sound good of like, oh, environment, oh, racial equity, but are they using that to do little handouts here and there? Like what are the programs, or are they like training melanated people to start their own businesses and starting a new like Black Wall Street and all those kinds of things like
Exactly.
that, you know, having little Africa, you know, towns or whatever, you know, well, obviously that's a whole continent. So, but you see what I'm saying, that there's different ways to enhance and fortify these different groups of people to make it so that there's equality without targeting in the way we are, like we were mentioning on Amazon or things like that, that there'll be featured categories and sections that say Black voices, or, you know, that hashtag like elevate Black voices. But it's almost a reverse equality because it's almost the exact same thing as having like a white water fountain and a colored water fountain. You're still doing like, these are the Black movies and this is where the Black movies go. Right. Instead of just having like, these are the action and adventure movies. And oh, look, there's a spectrum of different actors in that thread of those action movies. You can just fix it in the logarithm on the back end without having and making sure they're not suppressed, and make sure that like you're suggesting certain actors. If you search a certain actor, like, oh, they'll probably like this film, just equalize on that. And you don't have to broadcast it of like, this is the Black section of Black movies if you're in the mood for some Black cinema.
Right.
You know, that's fair.
That's weird, right?
Right.
Like that's not okay. Like that's weird. I'm in the mood to watch Black people in movies. Like, that's weird. That's weird. Like I want to watch Black people in movies. Let me separate that from everybody else. That's not okay. Like from the get-go, Black owned, Black this, Black that. I've always thought was weird. Now, when you're fighting for your own business and you have your own community destroying your business, like in '92, the '92 riots, right, having to put a display of Black owned business, I understand that, because we had our own communities destroying businesses that belonged to actual Black people who had to work hard for those businesses. But to sit there and say, oh, support Black business because, you know, if not, you're racist, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh yeah, like the ad you showed me on Facebook of like, here's a list of specifically Black owned restaurants. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, that's well and good, and that doesn't take away from the restaurants themselves, because I've ordered from plenty of Black owned restaurants that have been fucking amazing and absolutely 100% delicious. Like, pardon my French, but that's beyond the point. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're, oh, I'm gonna buy from here because they're Black and I need to support Black people. No, because if you ask me, that in itself is racist. Black people need my handout.
Right. They really need my money right now.
Need me to fucking
I feel guilty about George Floyd. So
I'm sorry, no, my brothers and sisters, that are more melanated than I am do not need my help. Do not. This is why they have businesses. I don't own my own business, but I'm going to support your business because you have amazing food quality and or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do everything to do with your business quality. If it has something to do with the color of your skin, it's only because I want to push for the encouragement of minority businesses being able to thrive and succeed. But that's different than saying Black owned and let me
Right.
buy from you because you own this business and you have this certain color of your skin. There's a big difference between support and racism. And we're getting close to that line. And maybe it may not be against white people because white people bad, white people this, white people that. I understand all of those aspects, but to sit there and want to put all our eggs in one carton and understand that, oh well, every white person is this, but black business owners are still oppressed. Like it just doesn't work that way. Business is still business regardless, and anybody who knows how to run their business will know how to run their business to a certain extent, where yes, the underdog is going to get run over because you have to make that business choice. And it has nothing to do with color, it's nothing to do with race, and it's nothing to do with anything but the fact that you can run a business with complete equality. That's what it boils down to. It's an even field, regardless of the business owners in the industry. If you know how to eat gut, eat gut. It has nothing to do with race and everything to do with your business antics. I know plenty of people in the field that are of every gender and race and color that own successful businesses. Be it they may not be billionaires, but who's billionaires? Like 6 people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what are we asking for here? What we're asking for is success and equality. So if you're going to compare yourself to somebody that makes billions, good luck. If you're going to compare yourself to an American that runs on the American dream, amazing. You're probably more successful than most Americans.
Right.
But it goes down to. Anyway, continue, please. I'm sorry.
No, all that was perfect. It's so on point. Yeah, it's absurd. This like reversal that we're doing, and that it is like this. There's such a rally to defend the victim, that there's this issue, that there's oppressed people in America and we have to save them at all costs, no matter who we have to shove out of the way in the meantime to get to these
and yet,
oppressed people.
Here's the thing about that. We're not even trying to save the oppressed people in America. Joe Biden, and I wasn't going to segue to this, but you brought it up. He signed an executive order to pass $20 billion. I'm sorry. He passed a financial taxation. Okay, so the border wall cost $20 billion. That was the big deal. So he passed a financial taxation to support the illegals financially, which will support more than, I knew I wrote it down. Okay, so alone in this week, as of data is concerned, 646,000 illegal residents that sit here in America. And again, I have no problem with people being rescued and having to come to America and utilize our resources to save themselves. What I do have a problem with is our country sitting there and pretending like they're using our resources and our taxes to help other countries when there's no evidence of us ever actually using those aids to help those countries. Where's the evidence? Why do they keep coming here if that's the case? Right. We keep sending aid over and over again to other countries. DACA, the Dreamers, yes, I'm actually all for that, because there's plenty of Dreamers and people that are under the DACA umbrella that belong in this country because they sit here and they're actually utilizing the economy and right. boosting it up. There's no argument there. The issue is that he wants to sit there and allow it to be illegal still. That's not okay, because what it does is it filters in this entire underling of folks that will sit there and drain the American people of their taxes, which again, taxation is theft alone. So for them to be able to raise them on the idea that open borders is okay, and if you're not okay with it, then you must be in the wrong, is not okay, considering we do live here. And there are
Mhm.
plenty of immigrants that live here that work their asses off to be legal that are still getting taken away from to this
Right.
day. So that's not okay. And that's something that we all need to understand. Illegal immigration is not okay. Immigration itself, absolutely fine. Why? Because we actually do have plenty of citizens that, and many of them, believe it or not, they're not even from here and they own small businesses. Plenty of them own small businesses
Right.
that aren't even from here. So how the hell they do it? We didn't even do it as Americans. That's one question. But number two is when they're sitting there contributing to our society, we sit there and we buy our milk from them in the middle of the night. You know, we sit there and you know these small shops they have this viability in our communities that we don't even see as valuable. They're also the ones and you know they're sitting there cleaning businesses in the middle of the night that again I don't even know how to come about it because again being illegal is illegal. I can't condone breaking the law, but at the same time, we do have a lot of people in this country that are only breaking the law in order to survive, whether it be in this country or their own. So I understand refugees. I understand where that
Right.
comes from. What I do not understand is that we have a current president being 2 weeks in that absolutely wants to 100% drown his American following, like completely just destroy us economically by signing executive orders to allow, you know, it says 646,000 people under the DACA movement. I imagine it's a lot more. But here's
Yes.
the thing. The only other thing I can say about this DACA thing is that when President Obama tried to push it, he was also the one putting kids in cages and separating parents and the one putting people in detention.
Who built the cages, Joe?
Right. So take it for what you will, but whatever, like Miss Kali said, what looks good on paper may look good on paper, but that may not be what's happening out in the open.
Right. And like you're saying, in terms of immigration, exactly, like America is meant to be the land of the free, that people who are wanting and needing of freedom should be able to come here. But it's kind of like a nation ship is like a marriage, you know, so you can't have a bunch of people waltzing in and out of your house and your marriage that aren't accountable to it. And a marriage doesn't mean that you own one another. It doesn't mean that we own the government or the government owns us. It means that we're both agreeing to serve that unity that we share with each other, because there is no marriage without that union of government and the people. And so yeah, so to have illegals and you know, not to say that you should have to be married for forevermore either, necessarily, in terms of a nation. If you lived somewhere for decades and then you decide that you are called to another place on the planet and want to move and change your citizenship and everything to there and be married there and then serve that country, then that's your journey. You should be free to do that. But to have the border so open where it's not just like having friends come over and yeah, you want to have relationships with people, but that's completely different from them having like an intimate relationship where they can like affect your livelihood without having an accountability to your livelihood.
Right.
And without having any influence of theirs to be considered of you. That's where there's that break apart. And that's what will, you know, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So
Right.
that's what's going to tear the country apart, is if we're having all these illegitimate relationships outside of the sanctity of the nation. And again, everyone who's willing to marry America in that sense of, you know, and I know it sounds like kind of nationalism, but again, not with an ownership, but of like, I'm going to invest in you. I see the value of your land. I see the home and the dream that I can build here. I'm going to give to you. I don't want you to fall apart. I don't want you to be chopped for parts. You know, I'm going to like make sure you stand united. And from that, I know that I will prosper and flourish.
Right.
And that's the marriage. So
that's the marriage, right? Exactly. And that should be okay with everybody. And the truth is, as far as I've seen personally, 80% of the people I run into, that's the marriage and the contract that they have with the country that they've come into.
right.
You know, regardless of whatever country that they've come from,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're here for, to sit here
Right.
and to work and to contribute and to value where they come, where they're at now. And the truth is, if we really look into it, if we went to any other country, if we try to uh, become citizens of any other country, we'd have to culturally adapt. We'd
Hmm.
have to probably become almost patriotic. We'd have to be proud of the country that we reside in, and
Right.
you know,
Otherwise, you're a
America.
liability to it. If you're
It,
if you're not going to be respectful of the place that you're living, and you're just going to
right,
continually desecrate it each day instead of sanctify it and invest in it.
right, right. If you're
It's
going to
like
be
ask not what you
responsible
can
for
do for your
yourself,
country can do for you, but
absolutely, 100%.
sorry.
Yeah. No, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're 100. The only other one I wanted to bring up as far as his executive orders, and which was a big one, is the one uh, that responds to the idea that of transgenderism. I mean,
Mm, mhm.
he basically brought up, made an executive order to actually slap the faces of actual biological women who gender themselves as women. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't have to gender myself as a woman. I don't have to convince anybody of that. I could take off my clothes right now and show you guys. You know what I mean? That's not neither here nor there. So he overturned. I don't know if it was an overturn. I assume it was an overturn, but so basically there's an order for and okay, let me put it this way. It may not be an actual order. I mean, it may kind of just be a mandate at this point. But there's reason to believe that Joe Biden is ready to overturn ideas that uh, boys and girls can and potentially belong in the same locker room, depending on how did they define. Um,
Oh,
I don't believe that to be true, only because they're children, and children, like I said, children don't know uh, Adam from Eve. I didn't know Adam from Eve. I wanted to be I very much was convinced that I was a boy when I was a child. And that idea changed because biologically my chemicals changed, and I went through puberty, and nature took course, took to me, and here I am today, a woman. I mean, what am I? I don't know. That's my pronoun. I'm a female part. Um, so that one was kind of big because if you ask me, it's kind of a slap in the face to our little girls that go to
right.
school. Young women that in any industry and in any job place who have to question their own valuability as a woman because we have to sit there and compete now with women who spent over $50,000 to become who they are. And granted, transgender women are a lot better looking than I am. I'm not gonna lie, it's okay. Do what you gotta do, my love. But it doesn't change that I was born this way. So yes, that offends me as a woman. That makes me feel a little bit upset that I have to now compete and be equated to and or share bathrooms with, and my daughter has to share bathrooms with
Right.
somebody who identifies as a woman who wasn't born a woman, because regardless of how you were born, there are chemicals still that exist that ensue aggression, that ensue um, uh, certain desires, certain questions, certain aspects, and that's this is the thing. um, do I have a problem with somebody in a dress who's a man using a bathroom with me? No. Do I have a problem with somebody in a dress who's a man using a bathroom with my daughter? Yes.
Mhm.
That's my issue. That's my biggest issue.
Mhm.
And to be honest, if you ask me, this transgender idea, and again, not to take away from the actual um, suffering of transition that a lot of people do go through, which I can understand, and I can care less what you do as an adult, but to bring that into our children's lives and to make sure that they have to recognize it is a little funny to me, and a
Yeah,
little
most kids don't know what they want to major in when they reach college, but you want them to be able to like irrevocably like switch their their gender, or, you know, there are instances of people who have, you know, transitioned when they were younger and then regretted it, or, you know, retransitioned as adults later on.
Right.
And not to say that that means that no one should be able to do it, but it's a little bit along the lines of the death penalty, is that like it's possible to get it wrong. So that's why it's cause for concern, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing, like you said, like children are still developing even their concepts of gender and who they are and all of that. So to put all these different elements, and especially with like this sexualization of children, so it's not only that they want them to be like little boys and girls, it's that they want them to be like oh, who's that child, Desmond or something like that, that child transvest or child drag.
Yeah, and he's about 9 years old, right? Maybe
Yeah.
11. He might be 11 now, but yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know, it's one thing to like enjoy dressing up and strutting or performing however you want to in that of like self-expression, but they have him at like strip clubs and stuff, like performing for adult men, you know, and like doing these interviews with very famous, you know, transvestite or transgender people who you know, are talking about very adult subjects in front of this child with no filter. And you know, it's like, not to say that anybody should be excluded for how they look. Like a body can look like anything. There's any reason why you might not have certain appendages or whatever that however we're formed. So not to say that it's just about how you look determines whether, you know, they should be allowed to be a gender. But yeah, there does need to be that separation, I think, for puberty and to not be forcing
Right.
this narrative into children's concepts before they've even reached their own puberty, to experience what their sexual energy is before trying to assign a path to it. And especially with taking hormones when their body is still growing and all of those kinds of things. And
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so
And
there's
again,
implications of it.
we don't develop our brains fully until about 22 to 25 years old. So I mean, to decide that decisions, this is actually a huge deal in court when it comes to murder cases, because you know they like to argue, you know, the juvenile aspect, and maybe they didn't know any better. So a lot of cases have been won through that idea
Right.
that our brains aren't fully developed, and it's actually biologically true, just as much as, you know, female and male gender are actually biologically true, you know. So I mean, so you
Like
know,
we don't know
again,
what we want to eat tomorrow or what color our hair should be, but we should change our DNA forever. I don't know.
right, no kidding. And again, that's not to take away anybody's right from doing what they have to do. Again, he also passed an executive order to make sure that the military is able to pay for such transitions. If you're in the military and you're enrolled and that's something you want to do, which again is another thing that I'm against, because I have to sit here and fight for insurance for my daughter to have a heart. You know, so you know, for somebody to be able to have free insurance to change their vagina to a penis kind of offends me.
Right.
Sorry to say, but that's not okay.
Like these are essential work, by the way.
Right. So you know, like I said, America first. That this is the only thing we're going by. You know, it has something to do with immigrants or illegalities. It basically is you cannot alienate citizens and find revered other citizens, because that is an equality. You know, so the idea of equality is almost impossible to maintain. There is no such thing as actual logical equality. We're all going to be on different scales, on different spectrums. That's going to be okay. How we react, how we tolerate these different spectrums is a different case. And that all goes back to character. If I think I'm better than you because you are transgender, or if I think I'm better than you because you are of a different skin color than me, then that makes me an asshole. You know, that makes me a bad person. And that's not something that I was raised as, and not something that I plan to be. And at the same time, that's you know, we have to wake up and understand that most people aren't like that, and most people just have misunderstandings to certain things as being transgender. And you know, a lot of the people that have racial issues, I think, are a little bit older, and I don't think they come back to being racial. I think they come back to just being flat out naive and ignorant. I think the racial thing is going to kind of phase out. And that's just my personal theory. Within the next 10 to 15 years or 20 years, when the next generations come in, I think the idea of racism is going to absolutely disappear, because I don't see it. I just don't
Well,
see it.
it
Yeah,
has such a it's intentionally injected into the society from the powers that be. I think naturally, without interference, it would just die out, because it's just apparent that like all the people matter, you know.
right.
But because like even if people aren't being raised that way in their family, or they're disagreeing with them, there's still people who are ostracized and then recruited for these particular groups that have their own chain of command to intentionally be there and make sure that this is like a segment of our culture, you know. So
Right.
but uprooting to attack like the pawns, or you know, the individual people that are going through whatever their conflict of their self-identity, to feel like they need to take from another's identity to balance that, like that's a whole different problem. And isolating the people who are running these organizations, and truly like where that money, like follow the money, and then like we would figure it out. But they don't want us to think of that. They want us pointing our, you know, well, not our guns, but pointing our fingers at our neighbors instead of actually identifying like the source of these types of organizations and why it's being perpetuated. And you know, for these topics to be presented on TV, of we keep hearing this white supremacy narrative of it's a problem, it's a problem. I was just mentioning how the boys on Amazon, they had a theme of the villain was a white supremacist. So it's being predictive programming and reminded into us, and always like equated with Hitler and the Nazis and how they came to America. So that's like part of common knowledge now that you know, some ex-Nazis were relocated to America and utilized in eugenics programs after that, in brainwashing and all those things. So there's an element of that, but still, for it to be so prominent in our culture and society is intentional. It has its own marketing campaign, white supremacy.
Right.
And that doesn't come from the people, you know, in the land. That comes from whoever's like making the narrative on the TV and picking the pictures and signing off on everything.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And there's 0.5% population of actual white supremacists, and it seems to be the most prominent thing in the media.
Right, right.
You know, it's funny. The last thing I kind of wanted to bring up about his executive orders, which is kind of the most interesting, and this is going to come as a surprise to you, because I kind of want to hear your theories on it.
Okay.
So on his first day of being in office, he actually sent a convoy to northeastern Syria.
Oh wow! How many or how big?
I believe I have it under 3,000. I have it at 3,000 troops. Oh, hello.
Yeah, well, they've definitely been amping us
His
up
very
for.
first day back, by the way. That
Wow.
was
This needs to get done. And after Trump declaring like peace in the Middle East and all that, for us to be, and there's been a lot of reports about Iran, and you know, they're gearing us up for having these new boogeymen. So after the virus and the vaccine and all that is distributed, now we're going to have, you know, wars to worry about.
That's my point. So we've gone, and I just want everybody to notice, you know, just in case that this ages well in 4 years. I want everybody to notice that we haven't had a war in the last 4 years. We haven't had a new potential war, and now within 24 hours of our new president, Mr. Joe Biden, being in office, we have deployed troops into Syria for God knows what reason. What reason do we have to be in Syria right now? Please leave it in the comments. I mean, seriously, like I'm clueless as to why we would be there right now after the treaty that Trump so structurally and accurately put up with great timing, which was a huge deal. We brought it up in our 2020 year in review that you know, the Ibrahim covenant was signed. That's biblical shit, ladies and gentlemen. That's exactly what Joe Biden is actually trying to undo today. And again, as of 1/20/21. So yeah, That one was mind blowing to me. I didn't know that until today. I was like, whoa, did he really do that? And yeah. I
Day
mean,
one.
granted, it's
Wow.
only 3,000 troops, but it sets a precedent.
He's like setting the
Right,
stage there. You know, they're planting
right,
their seeds. Yeah, and it's
right.
interesting too that it's we're 2021 now, so it's exactly 20 years since 9/11, you know, that is going to occur this year. So just like everything else happens in cycles every 20 years or so, as far as like our
Right.
bigger wars.
It's been a four score.
Yeah.
Been a four score. Abraham Lincoln's been very prominent. I don't know, man. I do understand, and I do 100% believe that we're in for a big year, regardless of what happens. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, be prepared for false flags, and I'm going to go ahead and go out there and say them because I feel like that's what's going to happen. A lot of false flags of domestic terrorism, a lot of shootings, mass shootings are going to come back in a big way
Oh
because
yeah, they're coming for the guns.
just get ready. Get ready for all the big things that are going to happen in the news. And again, another potential terrorist attack, as you said, and it's not to scare anybody, because it's not about scaring anybody. It's about now seeing the pattern that America tends to go through. It's about being able to be, on the outside looking in order for us to be able to call it out. And the more people call it out, the more the more they don't get away with it. So
There's
that's
been
it.
instances where we've thrown them off their game, or where they've had to
Right.
make retractions or delayed their plans because there was such a pushback,
Right.
from
And
it.
Donald
And
Trump, if you ask me, he was one of the last big ones. He was the last big monkey in the wrench. And again, that's not to praise him. It's not to identify him as anybody, as anything, as a savior. I just do understand
he
that
went off script.
what he did for our country was absolutely 100% positive. And whether he was going to continue to do it or not, that's not for us to be able to suggest or to say, because he was never given the chance. All I do know is that he was one of the best presidents we've had in recent times. So,
And
Miss
they say
Kelly, thank you
that
so much.
those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. So just
Right.
being mindful of, like, Trump's not the first Trump, so to speak, in our country's history either. So just seeing kind of the patterns and like getting a bird's eye view over what America has gone through and in world history will really give us, our sight for heading forward. So we're not just like pulling this out of nowhere, or, all those conspiracy theorists.
No, not at
Like,
all. Not that. That's the beauty part of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on here looking like idiots. You know what I mean? There's no conspiracy behind any of these. These are all facts that we can all look up. And again, it's all about being on the outside looking in. It's all about just not sitting right here in this house, but looking from out there and understanding what's going on the inside. That's basically what it is, straight up. And once you're able to understand that, if it doesn't deter you or take you into this universe of deniability, it should do one thing. It should encourage you to continue to fight and continue to inform. And that's where we're at now. So yeah. You have any last thoughts, my love?
No, that was beautiful. Yeah, just that life is beautiful, and that to have that be inspired for us to move forward in each of these days, that, the beauty of life deserves to be respected and defended. And it's not just something that's handed down for free, in a sense.
Exactly.
Like, not to say that freedom isn't free, to coin George Bush, but it deserves our reverence, like growing a garden.
Right, exactly. Freedom is free, but it takes some work, and
Mhm.
it's okay for us to have to put in that work. It's called accountability, and we all are, we all can survive being accountable to our own selves every once in a while. We'll survive it, I assure you. Miss Cully, thank you so much once again for all of your work, all of your beautiful dedication.
Thank you, Tootie, for all your fabulous hosting, for all your research.
Yeah, you guys, these executive orders, the Democrats do have control of Congress. They do have control of Senate. We're riding with Biden. That's what we're doing. We're riding with Biden, and that's all we can do at this point. But at the same time, continue to research and find alternative news, because the truth is, they're not putting. Hunter Biden went for bagels, ladies and gentlemen. He went for bagels. So come on,
stop the presses.
Presses. Let's look for some real news outside of how much the president current president and his family are so normal. Let's look for other news outside of the normalcy of the current criminal in chief. All right. Well, thank you again. I love you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, stay vigilant, stay focused. And thank you for joining us on Off the Mark.